Tonight on History So It Doesn't Repeat, we examine what it takes to apply what you're learning and pay it forward. We'll talk with Mark Passio and Art Capozzi about their collaboration to organize an event here in Connecticut to share the wisdom of natural law philosophy with family and friends. Learning's the answer. What's the question? It's all coming up next on History So It Doesn't Repeat.
Good evening and welcome back to History So It Doesn't Repeat. I'm your host and navigator, Richard Grove, and as you know, history happens to be ongoing. In an effort not just to peer into the past, but to take substantial steps in the present, tonight we're going to shine a light of hope and effective action into the future. We're here to support a fellow media producer, Mark Passio, who's going to be speaking here in Connecticut in October, presenting on the topic of natural law, the real law of attraction, and how to apply it in your life. This live, one-time only, all-day seminar will address the main topic of natural law and how it affects our ability to make coherent decisions and achieve success in all areas of life. We're joined by Art Capozzi, who along with his brother Chris Capozzi have organized and are hosting this amazing seminar to share with their friends and family some useful knowledge composed to empower ourselves and supercharge our lives. Art, could you describe what inspired you to take this monumental step of activism and how it came to flourish?
Well, I guess this is something that has evolved over a number of years, but the two of us had a conversation about having our own little event just to more or less bring people up to speed as to how precarious things are starting to get and how much information is out there to help you solve some of those problems and look towards solutions. And then Mark had his April event, and the two of us went down there, and I don't know if it was synchronicity or what, but I said, I'm going to go talk to Mark when I go down there, because I really like Mark's work. It's fantastic. He's Italian. We're both Paisan. I think it's time Italians throw their hats in the ring to try to solve some of these problems. So I figured I'd go and say hi, which I did. Actually, I think I started talking to his wife at the bar at the after party of the event, or the third day of the event. And I think she introduced us, and that was it. I think Mark and I had a very quick conversation. I basically said, hey, Mark, if you want some help putting some stuff together, come on up. I'm planning on doing something myself up in the Connecticut area. And he jumped all over it, which was really cool.
Well, I was familiar with a lot of the content from the original Free Your Mind conference. I think that was 2 years ago, wasn't it, Mark?
Yeah, the original 2011 conference, yes.
Oh, right on. And
that
then
was Free Your Mind 1.
And then this past summer, or the past spring, that you had the Free Your Mind 2 conference. And
right.
So, Art, you don't live anywhere near that conference. I mean, that conference was down in Philadelphia, if my memory serves. Where do you live?
Yeah, that's true. I'm up in Boston. My family's from Southern Connecticut, and the two of us, my brother and I, basically decided, we're going. So we drove down, got a hotel room, maybe a half an hour away from the event, and then just hooked it back and forth every day for three straight days. Yeah.
Well, now let's talk about a little bit of what inspires one to take action in the form of, scheduling a road trip, getting a hotel room. That, it takes a little forethought. You can't, even if it's spontaneous to do it, there's a little, action behind that, and that is spawned by some desire. What was it in Mark's presentation last year, that you found to be inspiring? Like, what did you know about beforehand to make you take that drive?
Well, I think I started going through Mark's material in depth right around the same time I had started going through Michael Tazarian's stuff in depth. Really, it's been less than 2 years probably that I've been really going deep into it. And I mean, what I like about Mark's stuff is that he and natural law in general is that he puts an excellent visual with a lot of very logical information. So you get the left brain and the right brain working together, and you get a very balanced perspective, one that will hopefully activate the ability to recognize patterns. And as we all know, in our society today, things are very left brain focused, and this is really problematic because you don't step far enough away from the canvas to see the big picture. And we're talking now in terms of pattern recognition and a solution, and Mark's aspect is very solution focused. and natural law is very solution focused in general. So in my view, he sort of nailed it. You have a moral or truthful proposition, or you have a untruthful proposition, or what in my opinion really is therefore an immoral proposition. And you make a decision. You're going to go one way or the other, and you're going to have consequences for both situations that we have to take responsibility for. Short answer.
Well, okay, so you're laying out the fact that, as an adult, you've noticed that there are certain problems plaguing humanity, and you're trying to apply your logic and reason to figure out what's going on and to organize all these disparate facts into something called an understanding. And you're searching for the root causes, and what you're indicating to me through that, what you just said, was that you've identified that Mark has identified and organized and presented some very useful concepts that apply broadly as well as particularly to daily situations. So it's this idea of philosophy and learning how to actually observe reality using our five senses, and then going along with the laws of natural law, which is basic logic that we all should have been taught in schools, but we weren't. You're finding these to be useful tools, and you're trying to take active steps to share them with friends and family. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I just get the feeling that things are moving into a crescendo. We really need to start getting smarter about how we're living our lives day to day. There are going to be consequences for the decisions that we make. And if we keep ignoring that which is in nature, that which is obvious, forget the stuff that's gray area, the things that are obvious, the chemtrails. If we keep ignoring those things, we're going to do it to our own detriment. And I feel so strongly about it that I figured I'd just start, attacking the problem. And luckily, Mark was kind enough to get involved.
Well, let's just talk about this concept of natural law philosophy. Art, you can say a couple words about your interest in it, and then we can pass it off to Mark to actually fill us in and provide a general definition for those who might not be familiar with the concept, or how culture in America specifically has moved away from these types of rudimentary forms of foundational logic.
Insofar as natural law goes, what I like to identify as the most basic aspect, and Mark talks about it all the time, is this notion that we simply we are in alignment with natural law when we are not performing harm against others or other people's property, period. So when you look at it from that perspective, all you have to do is turn on the news for 5 seconds and think mildly critically about who is performing harm where. And that, for me, is really what natural law comes down to. So to be able to take that and actualize your life based on something as simple as that means there will be changes. There'll be changes within you, and those changes will be reflected outside. And so, I think, again, of course, Mark's great at explaining these concepts, so that's why I'm, bringing them on up.
Well, and I, too, have been a fan of Mark's work for years, and what I'm detecting through the whole interaction of how everything comes together through creating media and sharing with others and doing your own self-study and then talking to your friends and family, and as the information slowly starts to permeate, we realize that there is harm being done to all of us on a daily basis in the form of deception, and the fact that we have not been educated to recognize the lies in our society. Without being able to detect these lies, we're having our choice taken away every day, and all these actions that we take that we're not informed in. And then we have to ask the questions, why weren't we informed? What's the history behind this? But the first thing we have to address is how we understand our own relationship with that which exists, and truth, which is something that has gone through the trouble of having occurred or is occurring right now. So on that note, I want to pass it to Mark and ask you the question, just generally define the concept of natural law philosophy for the audience.
Sure. Well, in the very strictest scientific sense, what we're really talking about here is something that exists in nature. When I use the word natural, I'm not talking about anything other than that. Existing in nature, having a basis in reality, having a basis in truth. Very simply defined and general definition for the word natural. Many people will even have a negative connotation of the word natural because they'll associate it with something like Darwinism, they'll associate it with something like social Darwinism, etc., and we're not talking about Darwinistic notions or Darwinistic theory when we use the word natural. We're simply talking about something that's inherent to creation, the most fundamental definition of the word natural that we could give there. In other words, it's not man-made. It's not caused by humankind in any way. It's something that is not dependent on humankind for its existence. It exists in nature independently from humanity. That's the first part of the term. Again, giving a definition like this is great, because many people will hear the term natural law and they have a prior connotation to what they already think it means. They may have heard a soundbite from someplace. They may have heard someone else try to explain it. So I appreciate that we're starting from the definition, because it's very important to understand the exact concept that we're going to be talking about here in this presentation that I'm giving coming up on October 19th. So natural, inherent, having a basis in reality and truth, and not caused by humanity. And then the word law, let's define that. That's a condition that exists, okay, that is both binding, meaning it has an effect, and the effect is not dependent upon belief, and it is immutable, meaning that no matter what we do, that effect cannot be changed. That condition is there, and it is there because creation put it there, and we're not in a position to change that being in effect. So it's an existing condition that is both binding and immutable. When we put these two things together, we have the basic working definition for the concept of natural law. It is a set of universal, non-man-made, binding, and immutable conditions that do something. Okay, they're actively working to do something, and what they do is these universal, binding conditions govern the consequences of intelligent beings' behavioral choices. They are a set of laws that govern intelligent beings' behavioral choices. It's a body of universal spiritual laws that exist in nature, which act as the governing dynamics for consciousness. And it brings to us the consequences of the behavioral choices that we choose on a daily basis. That is what natural law actually is.
Well, and the danger to an individual is if you're not aware of these concepts and you're not programming yourself autonomously and learning how to think through these things and actually identify truth before you communicate to other human beings, you're going to spread a whole bunch of non-truth out there. And I think the root cause that we're all looking at is that the world today is substantially based on things that do not exist, and non-truths and illusions and frauds and deceptions, and a bunch of con men and a bunch of thieves plundering the hard work of productive people. And this is part of the natural immune reaction of individuals, is to seek out that root cause, try to understand it, become, knowledgeable enough to define it and communicate with other people in a substantial way. So let me take it a step further. Has natural law philosophy been obscured to the public in some way throughout history? And if so, how and why?
It most absolutely has been obscured. I call natural law, the workings of natural law, I call that the most occulted information on earth. It's the most hidden information in the world. And that's what the word occult means. Okay, it simply means hidden. Again, coming from the Latin verb occultare, meaning to hide or to conceal. So there's a specific reason that a group of people have hidden natural law, or in other words, attempted to dissuade people from understanding it, or even looking into it, or even accepting that it does exist and it is in effect in our lives. The controlling class is not interested in having people understand this, because first of all, this leads to the causal factors, the understanding of the causal factors about why humanity is in the current conditions that we're in. Many people can see the symptoms. They can look at the who, what, when, where, and maybe even the how. But when you ask them to get down to the causal factors and say, I understand all of this is happening and all of this is the way things are right now, but why is it like that? Why, and more importantly, why does it continue to persist in these conditions? Many people will have no answer for that. And so they don't understand the causal factors. Well, if you don't understand causal factors, you cannot get to a diagnosis regarding the problem. The diagnosis is identifying the causal factors so you can work to change those causal factors and therefore set the problem right. If you don't have access to the causal factor, there's no possibility for solving the problem. And that's what we're really talking about here, is solving the problem of the current human condition. So human beings will say, I want things to be differently. I want certain factors and conditions to be in place in life. And it follows logically that that there are conditions that have to be satisfied. There are certain requirements that would need to be satisfied in order to create a change from the way things are to the way things someone wants them to be. Well, if the knowledge for those requirements to obtaining those conditions are not known, then it follows logically that it would be impossible to manifest those desired conditions, the stated desired conditions. Well, that's exactly what natural law is. Natural law is the knowledge of the requirements to obtaining the conditions that humanity says that it wants. And if that's held back from people, the ability to manifest those conditions becomes impossible. And that is the role, that is why these requirements, this body of knowledge that constitutes these requirements for changing our conditions, has been hidden from the people. What occult knowledge in general contains is two bodies of general knowledge. The first is the knowledge about human consciousness and how it operates. And then the second component is the knowledge of these body of spiritual laws that exists in nature, which is natural law, which govern the consequences of behavior and ultimately govern the conditions that we get. So the reason that this is hidden is, of course, to create and maintain a power differential between those who hold that knowledge and do understand how the entire situation is working, how it works, and between the people who have that knowledge and between the people who are ignorant of that knowledge, who have not taken that knowledge in, who have not analyzed it and comprehended it and understood it. And of course, then they can't put it into action to change anything. So the reason that this body of knowledge is hidden is absolutely by the controlling class in order to maintain a power differential through the ignorance of the masses of people.
I have to laugh when you say that because it almost sounds conspiratorial. It almost sounds vague and general and non-specific. And I was making a couple notes as you were talking, and I was like, wow, he's describing exactly what I went through 10 years ago. Let me explain. Sure. I'm an example of what not to do back in the day because I didn't know myself and I didn't have knowledge, true knowledge of my environment. And that made it impossible for me to manifest around me in those conditions, the things that I sought and desired. I then hit disaster by coming up against reality, and what I thought I knew did not match up with what exists. I became a corporate whistleblower. I trusted in a corporate system, a court system, a news system, all these different systems that I thought were there for checks and balances, and I had to come to the harsh realization that reality was not anywhere near what we were taught it was. And the way the corporations work, the way that the news and media worked, all these different things are forms of theater and abstractions and proxies to really plunder a lot of wealth from hardworking people. And what I had to come to realize slowly over the years, piecemeal, is very neatly summarized in all of your work, because you're basically taking away all of the noise from all these different books and basically saying, look, here is the true wisdom that they are occulting, that they are hiding. The process of education is to unoccult information. So the idea is that you are doing the opposite of occulting. You're saying, hey, here's the most valuable information that's been hidden through history to individually take human beings and turn them into human resources as part of a collective that do not think for themselves. And we now live in a society that is full of these people. It also could be compared to Brave New World. You've got the different grades or castes of individuals being bred. There's an alpha class that gets all this information and understands natural law and they're using it very effectively against people who don't understand it. And then you have a beta class, a gamma class, a delta class, epsilon class. And when you go out and interact with people and you can't get them to actually engage rationally, logically, reasonably, and they're just going from what they've heard and they're just repeating, I mean, you're dealing with not an artificially created, but it's a software corruption in our education system that turns individuals into non-thinking automatons. So I think that's really where natural law philosophy hits home personally for me, because I've had to actually learn what exists and start working with truth over the past 10 years, because that is the path to survival. The other path to ignore all of this is the path to every action that think you're taking in your life for you. It's been programmed for you to want those things, conspicuous consumption, to buy these things and to outsource your self-reliance and self-esteem to experts and things that you can buy, instead of building your mind, which it should be your most valuable resource. For most people, they don't even see it as a resource, but really we should spend time exercising our minds and learning some intellectual self-defense, because we live in a very predatory environment when you get down to it. It's all run by force, it's all run by violence and coercion when you get down to it.
Exactly. And the main thing that I want to take away from what you just said and add on to a little bit is this is social engineering. It is deliberately constructed. It's not something that just accidentally happens. And if we want to even take away the euphemism that I just threw out there called social engineering, I mean, let's get right down to it and call it what it really is. It's mind control. That's really what we're talking about here, is the subtle control of other people's minds. And again, it can be a subtle process. It can actually be blatant in many cases, but the subtlety lies in the fact that they don't even have to completely cleanse this information from human consumption. They don't have to completely take it away and eliminate it so that it doesn't exist anymore and it cannot be discovered. What they need to do is the most effective method that they have at their disposal is putting enough doubt out there and putting enough methodologies to dissuade people from looking into it. In other words, saying, oh, there's nothing to this. This is a bunch of conspiracy theorists talking about what they think they know. Again, there's a big difference between nescience and ignorance, two forms of not knowing. Very important to distinguish between them. Nescience means that one does not know because the knowledge was completely absent or unattainable. It could not be known. There was no pathway to coming to know that information. That's not where our society is at right now. We are not a nescient society. We are actually drowning in this information. It is so abundant that it's almost like you don't even know where to go first to get information and how to gauge it to understand, what of all this abundant information, where is the actual crown jewel, or where's that needle in a haystack that you need to go and find to really understand how things are working. The nescience is not our problem, not by a long shot. The information is here, it's all around us, and it has been actually always. The other form of not knowing is what they want to keep us in, ignorance, or as I like to call it, ignorance. And I stress that syllable there because it really gets people to understand that it means to ignore. We often lose the real understanding of a word in the subtle ways that we pronounce it many times. I like to call it ignorance because when you say it like that, it's unmistakable and it's unambiguous that you are ignoring something. It's there. Now, to ignore something means it's there. And you're willfully deciding not to pay attention to it. You're willfully deciding to ignore its existence. Ignorance means not to know because the knowledge was present, yet it was still refused, willfully refused, or just simply disregarded because someone dissuaded you from looking into it. That's where our society as a whole on Earth in the year 2013 is at. We are not a nescient society. The information is here among us. We are willfully ignoring it. And that's what we're trying to do an event like this, to try to get people to understand. You've been dissuaded from looking into this your whole life, and that's been done in order to control you. And instead of going and pay attention to all of the distractions that are out there or the mindless forms of entertainment, come out to an event like this. It's family oriented. It's really providing a valuable service to the community by giving people certain tools to understand what's going on around them. And when they come out of the seminar, they will really have a deeper understanding and appreciation of how these laws operate to create the conditions in their life. And it's working with them. They're co-creating with this process through their behavioral choices. And if they understand that, they're going to be in a much better position to understand patterns, to recognize the patterns that are taking place around them regarding why the human condition is the way that it currently is.
Well, I have to observe the fact that I've seen a movie called The Secret. And so I've got a vision board, and I'm just going to think positive, Mark. And I don't need to come to your seminar because, I've already seen The Secret, so I've got The Secret. Is The Secret something legitimate, or is it a lure with a hook inside? Is the equation missing something? And if so, what? And if you discover that, what should people do, as far as coming to your seminar?
I would say that there are some truthful elements within The Secret, but it is not the totality of the law of attraction. The laws of attraction are what I'm talking about and calling under the term or the umbrella term natural law. The Secret appeals to an egoic sense of spirituality, if there is such a thing. It's appealing to someone's desires, often in a base way of saying, well, what do you want in your personal life? You want that new job, you want that new car, you want that new home, etc. And visualize it and feel an emotion, and then that will set the process in motion for that to come to you. There's so much more to the laws of attraction than that. And I'm not saying those things are not practical and they won't help to create those conditions. But the big thing, two big things that are left out, and they're the most important things when it comes to the laws of attraction and natural law. I'll start with the lesser of the important things, okay? The lesser of these two huge important things that is often left out in the sanitized or new agey or commercial version of the laws of attraction is action. The importance of actually putting yourself out there and taking action in the real world. It isn't just about a visualization process. It isn't just about something that is going on in the mind. It isn't about just feeling an emotion in the body. It's doing those things, but then actually taking action in the world. Okay, actually doing something to bring those conditions about. Now, that's the first thing that is often left out in, again, these sanitized variants of the laws of attraction. The number one thing that is almost always left out, and you will often not even hear the word mentioned when people are talking about the laws of attraction in the new age sense of the term, is morality. Morality is often left at the door. And that is the most important aspect of the real laws of attraction, truly understanding the objective difference between right and wrong. And again, many New Age variants of the laws of attraction will not delve into that dichotomy because they'll say, as they've been taught in the New Age circles, that this is duality, it's dualistic, it's something that is, at opposition, right and wrong. We don't want to talk about right and wrong. That's a dualistic concept. Absolutely, it's a dualistic concept. It's called a dualism that exists in nature. It's a real dualism that if you ignore, you're ignoring nature. You're ignoring that which is. You're ignoring truth. And therefore, you're going to get unintended consequences and consequences which often lead to suffering in one's life. And that's the thing that has to be stressed with natural law above all else. You could use the term interchangeably. This is moral law. That's what we're talking about when we talk about natural law. It is the laws that bring to us the consequences of our behavioral choices through the decisions that we make regarding morality, the differences between right and wrong behavior. That's what natural law is ultimately all about. Now, in order to make those decisions, in order to align our behavior with natural law, we have to definitively and absolutely know, not believe or think, but know the difference between right and wrong. And those are objective. Those differences are objective. They are not subjective, and they are not something that are just based in perception. They are something that can be known. And what we're going to do in this seminar is we're going to go very deep into the breakdown of what makes something right. What is right? What makes something moral? When you do an action, how do you know whether it's moral or not? How do you know, whether it's a wrongdoing? We're going to get into what constitutes harm. That's the key thing to keep in mind. If something's constituting harm, you're stepping across that line of morality into the realm of wrongdoing. And we'll get into all of those, distinctions in the seminar. So those are the two things that are left out of that, what I would call the sanitized New Age variants of the laws of attraction. The subtitle for this seminar is The Real Law of Attraction and How to Apply It in Your Life. That's the subtitle for this natural law seminar.
Well, I think the practicality is that we increasingly notice that we live in a society that has an absence of morality. And so in asking the questions, what is the composition of morality, you've discovered that there's this thing called objective truth, that it applies to all individuals, not whether you believe it or not. It's like the law of gravity. It applies whether or not you believe it or not. It's there. It's part of nature. Mankind did not create it. And these are the things that we need to be in touch with. For instance, to survive in this world, you have to be in touch with those needs. So it's this idea of duality or solipsism, that there is no truth or there's no right and wrong, and that makes people's morality very ambiguous. And so in trying to aid in the healing in the immune system of individuals and, as a microcosm, and the country as a macrocosm, we are all learning how this works and trying to articulate it not only to each other, but creating waves, propagating waves out into the world through media, through public interaction, through, the things you do every day, you can think about in this way, because this is how philosophy works. It applies throughout our days, and we haven't been using it, haven't been applying it, but other people do. They call them, your non-elected ruling class. David Rothkopf, the author from the Carnegie Institute, calls them the super class. These are people who are very well schooled in how to birth ideas into reality, how to get things done, how to harness human resources, how to build enormous wealth for their families at the cost of plundering the production of all of our families. So I think this is, again, a very normal process of individuals trying to bolster their immune system through knowledge instead of, feeding on the frenzy of all this. I can't even describe what they put on TV these days. It doesn't make sense. There's no history on the History Channel. There's no animals on the Animal Channel. It's just like they're just trying so hard to keep your attention. Look over here, look over here, look over here, instead of saying, look over here at the substantial information that forms the harness that is draining you of all your useful mind energy and body energy. And that's your whole life right there. I mean, if they're depriving you of your informed choice, that is every bit as serious as somebody trying to stab you in the back. That is taking away your life, your liberty, and preventing you from pursuing or attaining it. Similar with the subprime mortgage crisis, all these loans that were floated out there, that's another way that people were taken advantage of. It went against natural law, it was immoral, but not enough individuals had intellectual self-defense, and not enough people got together to make everyone else aware of it. So these are the lessons we've learned over the past 10 years from actions, and this is just the point where we're at, where it says, it makes sense for two brothers who live a couple hours away to say, hey, let's bring Mark here to Connecticut. Let's have a very nice venue, and I'm going to have you guys talk about the structure of the day and what you hope to accomplish in a minute. But just, the thought process that goes from listening in a consumer sense to taking action in a producer sense and saying, what can I add to this situation? How can I bring value? How can I introduce it to my friends and family? And that starts with some creativity and imagination, and taking that which exists and taking that which doesn't exist and starting to build that bridge into reality through hard work and action. And those are the types of things that are snuffed out of our so-called education system. It's really a schooling system to create servile workers. But if you notice, we have problems building up in this country and not enough minds to solve them income and not enough communication skills in the active literacies to be able to communicate to other people that here's the problem, here's why it's happening, here's what needs to be done, and here's how we can get it done, and have that as a recurring method in a cycle to get all of our towns and cities thriving again. So let's go into the structure of the day. What can an individual expect if they show up at the Omni Hotel in New Haven on October 19th, 2013? What can they expect if, it's a 12-hour event from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. How is the day structured, and do they get to eat?
Yeah, so I'll touch on that. We're going to close down a few aspects of this, but roughly the door's going to open at 9. I'll probably go on around 9:30 or 9:45 with about a 45-minute presentation to let people sort of trickle in. And in that presentation, I'm just going to talk about the basic coordinates, the things that we're seeing on the outside that we're not dealing with. The natural law is going to help us solve, just to put it in an easy term. And then Mark will get started around, I want to say 10:30, and we'll go to about 12. We'll have a lunch break from 12 to 12:15. It's all kinds of nice restaurants and plenty of stuff to do within walking distance of the hotel. In New Haven. So
it was 12 to 1:15, I think. I think you said 12:15.
Oh yeah, thanks.
No problem.
So sorry. So lunch will go from 12 to 1:15, and there's plenty of options for eating all over New Haven. Lots of nice Italian food and a lot of nice cafes that people can walk into. We'll get rolling again at about 1:15, and Mark will run basically till 5. We'll do a dinner break from 5 to 6:15. And then, people can go back out again and hit those nice Italian places, come on back, and then we'll do a closing segment with Q&A panel. And actually, Rich, we can talk about this, but I would like to let you and Lisa have a segment in the afternoon, something that you can do a presentation for also, but we'll figure that out in the back end.
And Mark, how, the time in between people are eating at Italian restaurants, how are you going to structure what they're consuming mind-wise, and how will you be sure to keep their attention and focus present on what's going on inside that room and not on their smartphones?
Well, I have an extensive presentation planned. It's about 250 slides, and it is going to cover just about every aspect of natural law that I could think of. I'm going to start with talking about what teachability is and how someone that shows up to want to learn something new, how effective they're going to be in taking in that information based on the mindset that they come with. I'm going to talk about similar things that we brought up here, requirements to obtaining desires, what we say we want versus what we're actually doing to make that condition come about. I'm going to get into problem solving. What are the methodologies for problem solving, and why are there so many problems in the world that seem unsolvable? What are we doing wrong regarding our problem solving approach? Of course, there'll be a whole section on truth versus perception, and how it's our goal to actually align our perception to that which is already there, that which has occurred. I'm going to talk about discovery versus belief, how this is not a belief system. This is not a religious thing. This is not a political thing. This is not a belief system. This is a science, really, is what we're really talking about here. It has the same methodologies that will apply as with the scientific methodology. To understand natural law, you define parameters to be tested. And then you observe and gather the necessary information for testing those parameters. You form your hypothesis, and then you go out and you test the hypothesis through experimentation. Then you analyze the results and you share them with people. That's what the scientific method is. There's no difference between that methodology and the understanding of natural law. Those methods could equally be applied in understanding how natural law operates in our world. It's just we generally test them with observable phenomena, that are right there, that are physical, physics and dynamics and gravity, etc. This has to do with behavioral dynamics that often has a time lag involved in understanding, because it's not like if I do something wrong right now in the moment, I'm immediately going to experience the consequences of natural law. No, that may happen 2 years down the line. It may happen 10 years from now. It may not happen in this lifetime, but make no mistake, there is going to be consequences for that behavior if it is immoral. Let's see, what else am I going to get into? I'm going to get into the brain a little bit, consciousness and the human brain, and help people to understand, if there's a lot of brain imbalance present, we have to understand ourselves to understand natural law, and the reason many people cannot really comprehend this is they're too imbalanced toward the left brain or the right brain. So we have to understand ourselves and the dynamics that are operating within us that have to do with consciousness. I'm going to get into how to heal that schism, and therefore to come to understand natural law a lot better. What are the methods that we can use to help promote balance within the self? Let's see. I'll get into, of course, natural law's expressions. That's going to be one of the bulk of the seminar, is understanding what are the expressions for these laws and how do they actually operate in our lives, so that it ceases to become an abstract concept and it becomes something that we really can understand, that is being applied and that is happening in our lives on a day-to-day basis, and it'll go a long way. That section of the presentation will go a long way to help people to recognizing how natural law actually works. Of course, we'll get into a breakdown of right versus wrong. We'll get into a breakdown of force versus violence. We'll get into an explanation of the twin pillars of enlightenment, as I call them, which is the sacred feminine dynamic of non-aggression, the non-aggression principle, combined with the sacred masculine dynamic of the self-defense principle. Let's see. I think that's pretty much the bulk of it. I mean, I'm going to talk about some other things, of course, like the fear of chaos being one of the roots for people not understanding natural law and wanting man's law to continue to be in place. We'll, of course, talk about the difference between human-created law and the laws of nature and natural law. That has to be understood very deeply, that the law system that we have is not based upon natural law. It's actually based upon moral relativism in a very deep way. So I'll touch on that. We'll get into the dynamic of order followers and how they're going against natural law constantly. And that's what's making the society degenerate even faster. We'll get into moral culpability, who's more responsible, the order giver or follower, and why. And then there'll be a solutions section too. I'll be talking about what people can actually do to bring their understanding of natural law to a higher level and bring their behavior into alignment with it. And then talk about the responsibility to help teach this understanding to other people. That's very important. That, understanding natural law is not the end. That's not the end of the journey. That's the beginning of the journey. So I'm going to really emphasize how we need to become teachers of this information. We need to understand it so well and so completely that we can go out and teach it to other people. And I'll be getting into that toward the end part of the seminar. And then we'll have a question and answer session where I will address people's questions and concerns, and give people a chance to, ask questions and get in-depth answers. I know, how do we understand that natural law exists and is in operation in our lives? That's a huge question everybody asks. So we could get into that in the question and answer session. I always get questions about animals and natural law. Why don't we see these consequences, carried out on the animal kingdom? And again, as I've said at the beginning when I gave the definition, it governs intelligent beings' consequences when they choose behaviors. If an animal is not capable of understanding natural law, they're not going to be held to the same standards as an intelligent being like human beings. Because we are capable of comprehending and understanding natural law. Therefore, we can't just say, I want to ignore that. I want to ignore the difference between right and wrong behavior. That doesn't fly if you're capable of understanding the difference and if you're capable of bringing your behavior into alignment with it. We're not totally programmed automatons that are bound to act a certain way. We have free will. So an understanding of free will is going to play really deeply into this seminar, and I'm going to go into depth into that as well. So that's my basic attack plan for this. And of course, that I covered a lot of various ground there. So this is going to be a long presentation. It's going to be in depth, and it will require an attention span. Absolutely. I mean, we're not the people who are coming. Yes, there's going to be. We'll make some jokes and be lighthearted. It's not going to be serious the entire time, and there'll be breaks, for people to go out and eat and relax and talk over things with themselves and, just take a break from the information. But I would describe it as it's going to be an intensive seminar. And, I want to give people their money's worth. So I want to cover as much ground as possible here. I want people to go home feeling like, wow, he just hit me with a lot there, and I have a lot to consider, and I have a lot to think about, and I want to go and research into this more deeply and come to my own conclusion about it and study it for myself. And if I come to similar conclusions that Mark has come to, well, then I want to try to articulate that as best as possible. I want to, know it so deeply that I can explain it to other people. And that's the goal here, is to get people to a place where they can start to bring this message to other people. And again, it propagates, as you said earlier, Richard, like a wave out into society. And that's when we're going to see real change start to happen, when people really understand these causal factors at a deep fundamental level. Then they're going to be empowered, and they're going to be in a position to go out and make real positive change happen, because they will be empowered with that all-important dynamic, the why. Why is the situation in our world the way that it is? If we have that coordinate, then we're in the empowered position to start making real changes happen.
Well, it's going to help us all develop self-confidence, and we're going to do a little self-learning to create that self-confidence, because what you're learning about at the seminar is yourself, and that's everybody's favorite topic. You're also learning about your environment, and that's where the self occupies, so it's also very important. And once you learn about that relationship of, existence exists, we're conscious of it, and things are what they are, and because of that, we have to get together, because free will takes responsibility. We're making choices as adults all day, every day, and if we're not using a consistent method to actually find truth and knowledge before making those decisions, we're biting into bait that has a hook in it, and they've had their hooks in all of us and all of our friends and families for a long, long time, longer than I care to talk about, but it's been multi-generational, to say the least. Many people have lived and died and had their entire lives stolen because they never made a real choice in their life. They were always going with the program. And I'm just saying, and Mark's just saying, and Art's just saying, look, stop, take a moment, look around, ask some questions. What are you really doing here in this world? Is this what you wanted to grow up to be? Are you doing what you're doing? And if not, what are the factors keeping you away from being where you want to be? And once you start to take that introspective look and apply it back into your reality, that's the real secret, is to know yourself and also know your surroundings and to come in harmony with that. And technically we use inductive and deductive logic to do that, and a whole bunch of our other presentations could fill in those blanks. But what Mark is offering is really, it's a unique once-in-a-lifetime event where you can sit down and listen to somebody and not say, I'm not saying believe him, I'm saying listen to what he has to say, take notes, go home, do your own research, and start on a track of thinking, because it's eventually going to lead you out to where you have acquired some useful knowledge. It'll help other people survive, or at least live a more fulfilling and satisfying life, and you'll want to do the humane thing and share this information with them in any form you can. But the higher production format of having Mark live in this very nice hotel ballroom is it's a really great environment to do some learning. And yes, there'll be thinking involved, but you shouldn't think of thinking as work. It's not work, it's living.
Absolutely. And, again, that's what we want people to come out of there with. We want people to feel like after they've left this seminar, they've been given something to deeply think about on their own, come to their own conclusions about, and if they come to similar conclusions, to go out and share that, to recognize that understanding this is the beginning of the journey, and then that gives them a responsibility. Hey, I know something that like 99% of the rest of the world doesn't know, doesn't understand, maybe hasn't even begun to consider, that is so important to the quality of life that we are living on this planet. that they have to know it. And it's if I have any compassion with my fellow human beings, I will go out there and try to express this information in to the best of my capability to help other people know this who want to know it. And even put it out there for people who may say they don't want to know it. Just plant a seed, not keep pressing and pressing and pressing them with it if they keep refusing it, but say, hey, I'll tell you this at least out there, even if you said at first, I don't want to know it. I'll put it out there anyway. Let us maybe drop a seed, and maybe that ground will just be fertile enough to let that seed sprout at a later time. I don't expect everybody to be totally on the same page. I expect some people to be coming to this who might not agree with a lot of the things that I have to say, and that's fine. But again, the whole point of this is to put a seed out there that may sprout at a later time. Again, I've said the phrase, the concept in the past in my work, that our universe is spoken into existence. The one who is putting the information out there, who is speaking it, okay, they're going to be influential in the way that reality is shaped. That's why the controllers are so successful. I mean, let's be honest. They're successful because their message is constantly being spoken 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You know, it's almost impossible to get away from it, their propaganda. And that's kind of what I'm trying to, the process that I'm trying to get started. We need to constantly be speaking this and putting it out there for people so that it's almost impossible for them to escape hearing this in some way or another. That's when we're going to start being effective. When our voice is as propagated and as ubiquitous as the mainstream media's voice. You know, when this information is out there in a completely diffused way and in a way that is completely distributed, and that can only happen if enough people are willing to speak it themselves. That's when we're going to see actual, real changes happening in our environment that are going to align with what we say we want for ourselves, with the desires that we have for ourselves. And therefore, that's how the real laws of attraction are going to bring to us, the results, the fruits of our labors, so to speak. That has to be done through the process of speaking this information to other people. And that's why, again, that's going to place such an emphasis in this presentation. Is it's not only going to be about what natural law is, we're going to highlight the importance that if you understand that this is how, if you come to the understanding that, yes, this is how it works, then you're in a position of responsibility to bring that information to other people. Because the reason the world is staying currently the way that it currently is because not enough people understand that this is how it actually works. So the only way you can change that is to propagate that understanding. And that's, again, going to be very, very strictly highlighted and emphasized at this seminar.
Where can people learn more about the events and purchase tickets? I assume they can purchase them online and also at the door. And what's the date of the event?
Yes, I'll give you the specifics. You can go to whatonearthishappening.com. That's my website. And you can click on the news section. It's actually in the latest news section on the left-hand side, or you can click the news tab at the top of the page, okay? But the headline under the latest news is Mark to present one-day natural law seminar in New Haven, Connecticut on October 19th, 2013. You can click that. It will take you to the article that explains, that has all the details, okay? And it has a poster there. Feel free to share that poster with your family and friends, okay? And it's going to be Saturday, October 19th, 2013 at the Omni Hotel. The Omni Hotel is at 155 Temple Street, Temple, Temple, in New Haven, Connecticut. The zip is 06510. The doors will open at 9 a.m. And again, art's going to be going on around 9:30 or so. The advanced ticket sales are $20, a donation of $20 that can be made to Chris Capozzi. Chris Capozzi, Capozzi. And the address you could send that to is 500 Monroe Turnpike, 500 Monroe Turnpike, Monroe, Suite 142, Monroe, Connecticut, 06468. That's Suite 142, Monroe, Connecticut, 06468. Okay, and that's for advance tickets. And Art, when will you be taking advance tickets until?
Right to the end. Right to the end.
Okay.
As soon as people come through the door that day, we'll go to 25.
Okay, so advance tickets are on sale right up through the day of the event. Okay, if you can get the your donation via check or money order to Chris Capozzi at the address I just gave, and the at the door tickets are only $5 more, $25 cash donation at the door at the Omni Hotel on the day of the event on October 19th, $25 at the door. Those are the details. You can get all of that at whatonearthishappening.com in the latest news section.
Well, I know Lisa and I are looking forward to taking, it's only an hour south for us, so it's not too big of a road trip, but we're going to come down, help get you some good high definition coverage of the event. It'll be fun to hang out with you guys and to see what you present, of course. And I just wanted to thank you for making the trip up north. It's like 5 hours for you, right? It's going to be a little bit of a day trip for you.
Yeah, we're going to be taking a train up, so we'll be taking Amtrak from Philadelphia, and it's about a 3.5 hour ride via train. Should be a fun drive out there, train ride out there.
I was going to say that sounds a lot more fun than trying to drive it. It sounds quicker, and it sounds like you can do something constructive on the way. So I'm looking forward to that. And Art, I'd like to thank you and your brother Chris for organizing this and for having that good idea whenever it occurred, externalizing it, starting to plan it out, communicating with Mark, getting his approval, organizing, everything that you have to do logistically. I just want to say I'm proud of you for doing something like that, and I hope it inspires many other people to do something similar, because Mark and I sure could use the help out here. It's there's a lot of work to do and a lot of people to inform, and not many people get the value behind what we're doing yet, but we know that the future understands what's going on.
Yeah, for sure it does. Yeah, and thanks a lot, Richard. I appreciate your help. Really appreciate you guys coming on in to film everything, and your help with the promotion too. Really appreciate it.
And with all that being said, you can learn more about how you can attend this natural law seminar and support Mark's endeavors at whatonearthishappening.com. And as always, if you'd like to know more, you can screen our recent interview with Mark discussing the basics of natural law philosophy to help prepare you for the all-day seminar, as well as tune into the Peace Revolution podcast on trageandhope.com. Until next time, I'm Richard Grove, thanking you for tuning in and not dropping out.